icon. So everything from Module 2 is due tonight at midnight. So hopefully, I know there was some issues with the one exam. We'll address that when everyone's done. But Module 2 stuff is due tonight at midnight. And Module 3 stuff we started, but I don't think we're going to be able to download what we were left with. So a couple things I still want to cover in Module 3 is I want to cover VLOOKUPs, and I want to cover if statements. So I'm not going to go according to the case that we started because you guys can't download it, I don't think. But let's go to Excel and let's create a blank workbook. So go to File, New, Blank Workbook. Okay, and let's do lookup tables first. Okay, so oftentimes we want to reference something and pull over something. So let's build a table here, and I don't know. Let's call this. I'm going to go over to F1. It's fine, and I'm going to do part ID. I'm going to say part description, and let's do part price. And I'm just going to make up some part IDs. And some part prices. You guys don't have to match me here. We're just making a table, so something like this. So we could have this table. I have 4 items in this table, but obviously this table could be thousands and thousands of rows. And I want to maybe reference this table inside my Excel spreadsheet somewhere. So just build something like this if you would. So let's say, I don't know, say we're building an invoice. So an invoice in part A, put invoice. Let's give that a self style of title. And we're not going to design the most beautiful invoice here. Maybe skip a few rows. And let's do an item 6, do item description. Actually, before description, let's insert a column for quantity. All I did to insert that column was I highlighted column C, right-clicked, well, it was B, and did insert, and inserted a column to the left. I don't want that one, so I'm going to undo that. And then we'll do price and sub. Let's give those a nice cell style. Accent to orange. So I'm selling parts apparently, and one of our tables could be a separate worksheet, could be a separate workbook, could be in a database. Could be a lot of different places, but we have all of the items that we sell in some kind of spreadsheet, some kind of database, some kind of list somewhere. And we have information stored. We have the ID, the description, price, and there could be a lot of things stored with that, right? And if you guys remember from MIS 102 or database management, oftentimes when we add something to a table, there is something that uniquely identifies every row in the table. You guys remember what that was called from database management class or MIS 102, which I taught you? Like your driver's license number is this, your bank account number is this part ID is this. It's called a key. What kind of key?
Primary key.
It's a primary key, right? And that's why, when you get an account, you're uniquely identified, right? A user ID uniquely identifies you. That's the way data information is stored. So I want to put an item here. So I'm entering an order for a customer, and PT003 is what someone ordered, and they ordered 3 of those, okay? So I'm just going to center that. And I don't want to have to type in, it's Amico. Because I don't know what PT003 is. I want to go to that table and find it. What we use for that is something called VLOOKUP, okay? And there's really two separate, there's VLOOKUP. That's when the data is stored like this vertically. Okay, it's everything vertically. Horizontal lookup, HLOOKUP, would be stored this way. Okay, so this is a VLOOKUP because, and most are VLOOKUPs because most tables are stored this way. There are times when we use HLOOKUPs. So the first thing we want to know is, well, what am I looking up? Like, what is the primary key? What is the thing I'm going to use to index that table? And in this case, what am I looking up? What am I looking up in this case?
Or description.
Yeah, well, that's what I want to find in the table. But what do I want to reference the table with?
Part ID.
Yeah, the part ID, which is stored in A7. So I'm going to say A7. That's the lookup value. That's the value that I'm going to use to access that table. It says, all right, where is this lookup table that you want me to look at? The lookup table is G1 through I5. Actually, I don't want the header. G2 through I5. Okay. And then it says, what do you want me to return? Okay, so it knows that this is vertically stored. So, because we said VLOOKUP, so it says, what column do you want to come back? This will be column 1, this will be column 2, this will be column 3. So in this case, I want to return column 2, right? The description, comma. Okay, now, there are 2 things that I can do here. I can say an exact match or an approximate match. An approximate match is more when you're looking like in a range. You're looking for the closest thing that doesn't exceed it, kind of like the Price is Right. In this case, I want an exact match, so I'm going to use false. So VLOOKUP A7 G2 I5 2 comma false, and I hit enter, and it goes to the table and finds Miko. If I change this to part 1, it should automatically go to the table and find ABC. Okay, does this make sense? So let's enter the one for price. I'd probably be easier to copy it, but this one I'm going to enter with, I'll do it with my insert function. So we'll do it a little bit differently. We'll do insert function. I'm going to find VLOOKUP. Okay. And let's do it it this way. So it says lookup value. Well, once again, the lookup value in this case is going to be A7. The table or array is G2 through I5 once again. The column index in this case would be what? I want to return price, so 3. And the range lookup is false. I click OK, and it tells me $10. The formatting doesn't come over just the value, so if I want it to look like money, I can make it look like money. If I change this to PT002, see it finds XYZ and changes the price. Okay, so the subtotal then would be, we take the quantity, which is B7, times the price, which is D7. Oops. Got to do equal B7 times D7. Times. Now, if I put in something here that doesn't exist, part 999, we get errors, okay? And you see, anytime we see that pound symbol, it indicates that there's something wrong, and that means it could not find what it was looking for. A lot of times, this isn't a good message to display to the user of the spreadsheet, because why? Well, if you think about it, they might not know Excel and they'll be confused. So a lot of times we can do one of two things. You'll see later when we start making more robust spreadsheets, we can put out a message that says, hey, this part is not found. The other thing we can do is kind of control the input. I can say here, I can put a drop down, and they can only access things that are already in the table, right? So they can't put in, part 999 because it doesn't exist. And we'll know, hey, this isn't something we sell. We have to do something else. So let's go to PT 002. And let's say we want to build a table. Let's say in our invoice they can only enter 5 things. So we'll only do 5 lines. So I want to do the same logic in the next 5 rows. So if we look at this, I'm going to drag down all these formulas, but help me decide, basically when we think about relative and absolute referencing, help me decide what stays the same, what changes. What do I need to make absolute here? Yes? Yeah, I always want to look in the same table, right? So I'm going to highlight, go put it in edit mode, double click, highlight that area, for that guy, hit enter. I have to do that over here as well because I do. And I'm just gonna drag this whole thing 1, 2, 3. All right, so I have 5 rows. We'll fix that. Let's just make this PT 0. I don't care what you put here. Let's make another, let's move over. So I'm just gonna click on column F. I'm gonna insert, I'm just gonna insert 2 columns. And I'm gonna go change, I'm sorry, kind of winging this, so. Let's go to L, you know, my original table. Let's add another column to that. You guys with me?
How did you insert those 2 extra columns?
Highlighted a column and do insert, and it'll always insert to the left. So this is probably what yours looks like. I highlighted column F. I did insert. I can do it again. Let's say we want to add another item to our parts. And what that is this thing taxable? And let's just say it's a 1-character flag. You guys keep internet the whole time up there?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Is it not here still? No Wi-Fi still? Okay. Okay, so let's say yes, no, yes, no. You guys with me? Let's go up here and put a field called tax rate. And let's pretend like we're in Pennsylvania. And we'll make it 6%. Okay, so what I'm trying to do here is we wanted to calculate a tax if the item is taxable. Like some things aren't taxable, like bread and cheese, but some things are, like probably everything you sell, it isn't. So what I want to put in here is something called like conditional logic, right? Conditional logic means, you know, based on this condition, I'm going to do this or not do this, right? Some kind of branching logic. Sometimes I want to do this, sometimes I don't, based on a condition, if you will. What mechanism in Excel does that? Have you guys used this mechanism? And actually in almost any programming language you would use, it is a what statement? An if statement, right? Makes sense. That's how we do things. If this happens, then we do this, right? If this happens, then we do that. So the first time through here, all I'm going to do let's do this. I'm going to do it, make it easier instead of trying to do it in one formula. Let's do this. Let's just bring over that tax flag. Okay, so we're just going to put an indicator here if it's taxable. So all I'm going to do is another VLOOKUP. So in this, I'm going to say VLOOKUP. And once again, I'm going to look up A7 because that's where my part is. My table now, I made it bigger. I could expand these, but I'm not going to. But I'm going to make sure I include that taxable flag. So I2 to L5 at this point. I'm going to return column 4, and again, I'm going to put false. And I'm going to make, before I hit enter, I might as well make that absolute. So it looks right? Part 2 is not taxable, part 3 is, part 1 is, part 10 is not, and part 1 is. Okay. to change that to taxable and then tax amount. So basically what I want to do here is if this is a yes, if this field is a yes, I want to take this subtotal and multiply it by our tax rate. If not, I want to put 0 in there, okay, because it's not taxable. So how the if statement works is this. We're going to use equal if, open parenthesis, okay? So we'll do one with the function too. It starts out with a logical test. Okay, a logical test means we have to test something to be true or false. And we have to design a logical test such that it's always true or false. Only one of two conditions can happen. So what we're going to say here is if, in this case, F7, which is where that flag is equal to, and because it's a string, we're going to put Y. Okay, that's why we have to put the double quotes around it, I'm sorry. Because it's a string, we said if F7 is equal to Y, and the way the if statement structure works is we say if some condition, okay, after the comma, this is what we do this if this condition is true. The second comma is do this if it's not true or false. Okay, so the first thing after the comma is what we do when it's true. The second thing after the comma is what we do when it's false. So, comma, if it is true, I want to take that subtotal, which is an E7 in this case, and multiply it by what? Multiply it by what?
B2.
B2. Okay, comma. If it's false, it's not taxable. Well, the tax amount is 0. So I'm just going to plug in 0. Okay, and the reason the 0 doesn't have double quotes around it is because it's a number. It's not a string. It's not text, right? The Y is text. And then I close my parentheses. So follow logic. It's saying if F7 is equal to Y, then we need to multiply that subtotal by the tax amount. If not, put 0 in here. Now, before I copy this down to everything, what part of this formula needs to be static, and which part of this formula needs to be dynamic or absolute? What part needs to be absolute? The B2, right? I'm always referencing that tax rate, and that's not moving. So let's F4 that guy. And I'm going to drag that down. So now you'll see the taxable items are taxed. And the non-taxable items are not taxed. And this is part of this chapter talks about using a good spreadsheet design. And this is good spreadsheet design because if the state of Pennsylvania changes things and says, hey, we're going to a 3% tax rate, I don't have to change it in every formula. I don't have to find every formula. I change it one place, and now we're only charging 3%. If somehow state of Pennsylvania changes regulation, they said, hey, now MECOs are non-taxable, I don't have to look and say, I can go right to that area and say no, and now it's non-taxable, right? Everything is referencing something else. So let's just finish this off. Let's say, total, I guess total, I'll just call it, is equal to E7 plus G3. Oh, wait a minute, plus G7. Back to 6%. And let's just auto sum that. I know this is going to start to not make sense in terms of traditional business, but I just want to show you some things. So let's insert another column here, and let's do, I don't know, big tickets. So let's say in this column, we want it to say big tickets if the amount is over $100. And if it's not, we just want it to be blank. Okay? So that sounds like I said the word if, so that's a conditional. So let's insert this with the formula tab. That's going to be under logical because it's an if statement, or I could just go to insert, but let's go to if. Okay, and the logical condition is what? If we're going to say $60, or I'm sorry, the H7 is greater than or equal to. So a couple things. As you would imagine, when we're looking at numbers, obviously this is greater than, this is less than, greater than or equal to, less than or equal to. This, less than, greater than, that means not equal to. Okay. That's good. So if it's greater than or equal to 100, okay, if it's true, I'm going to put, quote, big ticket. If it's false, if I want it to be totally blank, I don't mean like a space in there, I mean null. There's a difference between like a space and nothing. Null means nothing, right? Null and zero are different. Null means nothing. I just put double quote, like nothing inside there. Like 4 quotes together, that means nothing is in there. So I hit enter. Okay, if I drag that down, you'll see that logic worked. If I go to quantity 1, everything, I change this to 10. You'll see that it's functioning as it should. Let's say this though. So we don't want to just go with big ticket. Maybe we want to have 3 levels. So 0 to 100, let's say, I don't know. 0 to 100, let's say small, I don't know. We'll say 100 to 500, big, and 500 plus, we'll say biggest. So what we want to do, I think the best way to do this. All right. So a couple ways we can do this. I'm going to show you the more complex way. Well, I guess the more, I don't know if it's complex. It's a different level though. Okay, so if we want something with this logic, if it's 0 to 100, we're saying small. If it's 100 to 500, big. If it's greater than 500, we're saying biggest. What we can do is, we can embed if statements. Okay, what we do is we call these nested if statements. Right? Nested if statements. Nesting means like what Russian nesting dolls are. Little dolls that are inside of each other. You open them up. Nesting means you're putting if statements inside of if statements. You're nesting them one inside of each other. Okay. So let's put one in, and then I'll try to explain it. See if you understand what I'm saying here. We're going to say if H7 is greater than or equal to 500, we'll start with the biggest one and work down. It makes sense that way, and I'll show you why in a second. We're going to say biggest. Now, what Excel does is it evaluates H7. If it's greater than or 500, it says, I'm going to put in biggest, and it's done, right? As soon as it does something, it's done. It says, hey, this is true, I'm done. If it's not greater than 500, greater than or equal to 500, it goes to this next comma, right? So it's less than 500. If we're at this point, we know it's less than 500. But we don't just have one thing we can do, we have two things. We know it's not biggest, right? We've eliminated this because if it is, it's greater than 500, we put in biggest. Does biggest have two G's? Didn't Trump start using bigly as a word? Right? Don't make fun of that. Biggest is a word, though. I know biggest. Is biggest? No, biggest isn't a word. What am I doing now? Trump is causing me to start using words I shouldn't be using. We'll say biggest anyways, all right? So we need to evaluate. We know it's not greater than or equal to 500. I need to evaluate, this scenario. So I can end up with two things. And once again, I need branching logic. So what helps me evaluate this? Another what? Another if statement. So I'm going to nest an if inside an if. So I'm going to say here if, okay, because if I'm at this point, hey, I need to evaluate now, is it in this group? And I'm going to say if it's, oops, I need to use the total again, H7 is greater than or equal to 100, I'm going to use big. And if you think about it, if it's not greater than 500, it's not greater than 100, then it has to be small. Now, if you notice, I have two parentheses in there, so I give it one, it closes that first one. See how it matches with the coloring? I'm closing the red. I hit another one, it closes with the black. You see how it bolds it? And if you don't enter it correctly, it'll say unmatched parentheses, all those good things. So now I hit enter. Okay, that is big. Okay, let's make one small, small, big, small. Let's make one huge. So let's say about 100 of these things. Make those bigger. And so that's called nesting ifs. Any other way we could do that, you think? So what if we had 5 ranges here, or 6 ranges? And sometimes we do. What do you think? Like think about the logic I go through at the end of this class, or at the end of every class, to assign you a grade, right? I say, if Steve's grade is greater than 90, give him an A. If not, is it greater than 80? Okay, give him a B. If not, if it's greater, if not, Is it greater than 70, give him a C. If not, if it's greater than 60, give him a D. If none of those are true, fail him, right? Give him an F, right? So that's like 5 different outcomes, yes? And I could do that with an if statement. That what I just said could be designed as an if statement. But what's the problem with that? What's the problem with that?
Hello, typing.
It's a lot of typing, gets kind of convoluted. So what's another way we can do that? How about in programming language? You ever do it in a programming language? You ever hear of a case statement? Remember that? That's one way to do it. What we could do here, okay, is we could use a VLOOKUP, but what do you think changes about the VLOOKUP? What do you think changes about the VLOOKUp? All right, and I gotta remember how to build this. Let's build a little table over here. 0, 100. So these were my major cutoffs, right? I think that's the way I'm doing it. So from 100 and down, anything lower than 100, we said is small. Anything less than 500 but greater than 100, we said is big. And anything at 500 or more, we said is biggest, right? Wasn't that the logic we used? Well, what we can use, and let's make a letter column and see if it matches. So let's say big ticket 2. Okay, so let's just make another column. And in this one, I'm going to use my VLOOKUP method. And the lookup value I'm going to use is that total amount. So I'm going to say, in this case, H2. The table I'm going to reference is the table I just built, which is, in my case, in L7 through M8. I want to return the second column, but what's going to happen is, if you think about it, let's do it. I'm going to say here false, and we'll see why it doesn't work. So H2, L7, M9, 2, comma false. I hit enter. Oh, why did I say H2? H7 is what I want. I want to look up that value. So VLOOKUP H7, looking up that table, and it says false, which is an exact match. I hit enter, and it says NA. Why does it say NA? Because why? It's not in there, right? There's no 2000. If I change that to 2000, hey, it finds it, right? Change it back to 500, it doesn't find it. So the false flag says, hey, it has to equal. If we use the true flag, you see it says approximate match. So if I hit enter, you see what it says is, I'm going to look up for the value in this table, okay, the value in this table that is the closest, right? So, and the way it works is, this value is good for from 0 all the way to 99.9999. Then this one kicks in at 100 and goes to 100, 499.99. This one goes to 500 to infinity. Okay, so let's take that table, that VLOOKUP, let's make the table itself F4able. Let's F4 that table. And let's copy that down and see if my logic works. And I think it does. Okay, so yeah, they match. So the if statement is one way to do it. The VLOOKUP is better. Now, the VLOOKUP, the if statement wasn't too bad because I had three things, right? But what if I had, 10, 15, 20, ranges, like 0 to 100, 500? It would be logically very difficult to code that. I would prefer in that case to use the VLOOKUP. Now, keeping that same logic, if you remember when we coded the tax amount, we built a flag called taxable, and then we based our logic on that taxable field. What if I wanted to not have that taxable column at all? I didn't want it to show. I could hide it, but I didn't want it to show on the invoice. I don't need it. So how could I have changed this if statement in G7 so that I don't even need that field? Because I brought over the field. I still need to evaluate, is this part taxable or not? But what could I have done? What could I have done?
You still use the other table?
Which table? I'm sorry.
The one where you got that from?
This?
Yeah.
I still want to use that table, you're right. But I want to do it all in one step, I guess is what I'm saying, one formula. So what would I do is, if I eliminated this column, but I still wanted to evaluate, is this taxable or not? And if it's taxable, do this, if not. What I'd have to do is I had to embed, nest, once again, this VLOOKUP logic into here, right? Instead of saying, if F7 is equal to Y, what would I do? I'd have to put that VLOOKUP, that same logic in there for F7. Does that make sense? So we would say, if the VLOOKUP is equal to Y, then do this. If not, so let's do it. Okay, so what I'm going to do is let's just get rid of, let's just highlight that, F7, delete it, and I'm going to say VLOOKUP. Am I looking up the part ID, which is in A7. The table, once again, K2N5. I'm returning column 4. And I want an exact match, so I'm putting false. So follow my logic here. Instead of saying referencing F7, I took the code that was in F7 and replaced F7 with that code. So it's going to say if, all right, go do this. It's going to find it. If what comes back from that VLOOKUP is equal to Y, tax. If not, no tax. I hit enter, and it's not taxable, so there's no tax. I need to make this static once again. Absolute, I guess. And now, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna ask if instead of making it Y and, what if we made that true false?
Up here?
Yeah.
Sure, you could do that. So you could say, if this was true or false,
Yeah.
okay, you wouldn't even need the equal to Y. You could just say, you just put this in, and if it comes back true, boom. Now, the reason, it would probably be actually designed. Why no? It's because that's how.
For convention.
That's convention. That's the human is probably entering that. Like, is it taxable? Yes or no? You're going to see that more often than not. But yeah, you're right. I would simplify that because then instead of checking it for Y, we just say, this is an expression, come back true or false. What does it send back? Okay, so I know this is kind of off topic, but I think I covered the major things from Module 3 that were left uncovered. I'll go back through the text in the case and see what I may have missed, and then we'll cover that on Wednesday. Also on Wednesday, we'll start Module 3. There's an instructor case we'll do, so don't do that one yet because we'll do that together. As well, there's a good chance that Friday I won't be here, so we'll see about Friday. So just a little, there's a chance I might be as well. 50-50 at this point, okay? All right, so have a great day, and I'll see you real soon.